This is TWiT.
I'm seeing kind of like a thing happening. I think this is kind of interesting to talk about. Snap had its weakest quarterly earnings report ever, slowing its growth, the slowest growth in history as a public company. And of course, the economy right now, everything's, in flux. Everything's, upside down, it feels like, especially the last 6 months. Things have changed a lot in a very short amount of time. And so what they're seeing, because they rely so heavily on the ad spend, is that that money is just being removed, right? Not to mention Apple's privacy policy changes, which have had a dramatic effect on Snap. This is, of course, the changes that allowed iOS users to opt out of ad tracking. So that's making things more difficult for a poor company like Snap. Shares dropped 25% on the news. And then you got Twitter, which reported lower than expected earnings for the quarter. Their ad revenue actually only grew 2% year over year. That's compared to 23% growth last year. And so a lot of what I was reading about this, has to do with, the ad spend slowdown that's happening right now, the economy. Of course, with Twitter, you've got the shirtless Elon that we were just talking about. There's probably a lot of blame that can be placed on him as far as that's concerned. But actually, Twitter's spent out of pocket a good amount of money just on that alone, $33 million between April and June. But setting all that aside, we're in this time of economic uncertainty. Apple's privacy move is compounding the pain that's felt by tech companies who are just really, their business is totally reliant on ad spending and data tracking and all this crazy stuff. It just seems like Twitter and Snap are a couple of examples, and I feel like we're going to be, cascading effects as we move forward further into this year. We're going to see a lot more companies feeling the effects of this.
It's just not where people are. Twitter is its own thing. I think Twitter has always, they've always struggled, right, to turn a profit, to make Twitter, to really blow out Twitter into something similar to a Facebook, or I think Twitter is like a weird kind of outlier in its own way. But that's not where anybody is. And so it's like Snapchat is competing with Instagram and TikTok. And the thing is there was a point where, there was like a mix of younger and older people on Snapchat, and now it's the younger people have broken off for TikTok, and the older people have broken off for Reels. They're over on Instagram, and so there's just nobody there. It's not in use the same way that Instagram is being used and that TikTok is being used, and so it's just, I don't know anybody who uses Snapchat as their main mode of conversation with anybody anymore. You used to, but not anymore. And I think that's sort of the struggle that they're going to have, is they're going to find it very difficult because all of the, millennials and older are on Facebook and Instagram, and all of the Gen Z all the Gen Z kids are on TikTok now. And so they've all broken off from Snapchat, and they're like, bye, this is much more interesting to us. And also you have apps like Be Real, which a lot of influencers who are, in that younger demographic, they're also breaking off to apps like that. So it's just, it's a scenario where Snapchat is not in a great place, and I don't know what they can do to bring people back.
Release more spectacles, release more selfie drones.
Spectacles
Spectacles. I don't think I've opened Snapchat in about 4 years. So there was a point where we're like, hey, we're on Snapchat, but we were all on, MySpace at some point. We were all on Friendster at some point. We were all on
Facebook at some point. That thing.
Yeah, we were all on Facebook, and mostly I just get on Facebook to yell about Facebook, about how angry I am with them,
Sure.
and then. Mostly I'm on Facebook because of the bands, because that's where everyone says, "Hey, go see a show here on Facebook." But even for that, it's become completely unusable. It's just Facebook is really good at selling ads, and that's about it. Snapchat is really good at just, I don't know, sticking around longer than I anticipated, really.
Snapchat's really good at not going away. Other than that, it's like, well, what is it?
Every generation, it's like, it's not even every generation. It's just every so often you're going to have this churn where it's like, because no younger generation wants to use the social media platform that the older generations have used. They want their own thing. And I get that. I totally understand that. I respect it. Like, that's what it is. Gen X was big on MySpace. Like, then, and then it was, boomers with Facebook. Like, now they're like, but it wasn't that way at the beginning. And then it was like, oh, well, now we have MySpace, so like, bye. And they left all the boomers on Facebook. Then it became, oh, well, here's like Twitter, here's Snapchat, it's just, Instagram for a long time was like before it got bought by Facebook. Like, they're just like every single kind of like group that comes up and starts using social media, they want their own thing. They want their own thing. They want to feel ownership of it. They want to feel like it's their community, their age group, their demo, because that's what they want. They want to interact with people who are like them. And so it's very hard. I am surprised most of these companies have survived as long as they have. Just because, I guess now it's like if you look at the demographic use of each one of them, like it skews heavily towards one column, right? Like and I think, TikTok in particular is like, it's just exploding right now with users because that's where everyone is and that's where all the trends and the memes are coming from. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, and the stuff that's happening on TikTok is ending up on other platforms as well. It's like
just getting reposted, regurgitated.
And
Yes. It's all, like, and people go, oh, well, why am I using this when I should just be over here and then I could see it first?
Yeah, be at the source.
Then everybody just starts migrating. Yeah.
Instagram, so I can see what TikToks I haven't seen yet.
Exactly.
Like, oh, this one didn't show up in the algorithm. I'll go over to Instagram and watch it there.
Yeah. When my kids borrow my phone because apparently they know my password, they're ending up on YouTube watching the TikToks that are there. So this was a surprise, totally tying with what we're talking about. I was away with my family on a swim meet. For a swim meet for my daughter. And while she was there, she was with a couple of friends and she had my phone at one point. And then when I got my phone back, Snapchat was installed and some of her friends from the swim meet were friended. So apparently some people are using Snapchat and, I think younger kids apparently have Snapchat and use it regularly. I don't know.
It's what your friends have.
I think it's what your friends have and it's what your parents don't want you to have. Like Snapchat was the big thing, nobody's parents, because, things just disappear. Like, which actually turns out to be pretty good for kids when things disappear. Like,
I totally agree.
Totally. 100%.
So I think, my kids use it and I will use it sometimes because they, we all, like, I like to see their Bitmojis, especially when my daughter went away to college. So I could see like she was all the way in New York. But that's really the only way that I used it. But all of these companies are dependent on advertising dollars and those are right now in the toilet. So like, that's the other thing that is affecting all of these. And if you were already like Snapchat lasted this long for whatever reason, but it might be like the change that Apple made with tracking, like might be the final, kick in the pants, tossing them off the edge because they can't, they really can't make money right now because it's the changes with the Apple, it's the war in Ukraine, it's just the general like macro environment, it's all these things. And if you were already not doing that great, or if you were a Twitter where someone was like tweeting about how terrible your platform was, and also I'd like to buy it maybe, then you're not
hypothetically speaking.
Right. So like that's what I think they're all suffering right now. Anyone dependent on advertising is suffering.